If North Korea and South Korea united. South Korea and North Korea. Their name indicates that the two nations might be close to each other, or it's just the two sides of the same coin. But the reality is way different. Despite being geographically close to each other and being the one large state for centuries, Korea was divided into two separate countries after World War II. Later in 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, starting the Korean War, which ended in a deadlock in 1953. Since then, the two nations went on their separate ways. Now, there are various talks on the unification process where it is proposed that both South Korea and North can be reunited into a single sovereign state. But if it happens, what would be the consequences? What compromises both nations would have to make to adjust to the other? Or will people accept each other because both countries have different political setups, different laws, and even different ideologies? The recent discussion over reunification started after 2010, and the latest development came after North Korea participated in the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang in South Korea. These games were also attended by Kim's sister, Kim Yo-jong, and she became the first official representative of North Korea's ruling family to set foot in the South since the end of the Korean War. In 2019, South Korean President Moon Jae-in proposed reunification of the two divided states that can happen by 2045. The idea of reunification of North and South Korea seems perfect on paper, but what will happen if these two countries are actually reunited? Reunification can bring in a lot of advantages for both countries, but there will be some consequences as well. Number 1. Merged economies. If South Korea and North Korea reunite, their merged economy can become so powerful that they can beat Japan, which is the third largest economy in the world. As of now, North Korea is lagging far behind when it comes to economic development, so if North and South Korea reunite, North Korea will benefit the most from it as it will be able to get advanced technology from South Korea. North Korean businesses will also get capital funding from South Korean investors. But what will South Korea get in return? South Korea can get workforce and labor from North Korea at comparatively lower rates than South Korea. The next benefit for South Korea will come from North Korean natural resources. South Korea is the fifth largest exporter, but its exports mainly consist of technological products and it's highly deficient in natural resources. South Korea spends millions of dollars to import minerals from other countries. North Korea, on the other hand, has infinite natural resources including trillions of dollars worth of mineral reserves. After reunification of the two nations, South Korea can use North Korean mineral resources to fulfill its needs, and all the money that is spent on the import can be reallocated and devoted to other developmental projects. Number 2. Economy can go downhill as well. If South Korea and North Korea reunite, the collective economy would not necessarily boost up. The situation can go the other way around, as there is a huge difference between their economies, and it won't be an easy task to merge it the way that both nations will get the benefit. At present, South Korea and North Korea's per capita income ratio is 22-1, with the South Korean economy ranking at number 10, while North Korean economy is at 115th. The workforce that will come from North Korea and will work on lower pay rates might increase unemployment in South Korea. Another consequence that South Korea might have to suffer is that around $1 trillion of taxpayer money might be needed to improve the standard of living of North Koreans. As a result, the economy might collapse, resulting in protests and eventually civil war. Number 3. Different ideologies. North Korea and South Korea are two distinctly different nations with entirely different ideologies, laws, public rights, and government policies. If these two countries reunite, these differences can lead to countrywide conflicts. For instance, in North Korea, males have to serve 10 years in the military, while women need to spend 7 years in service. On the other hand, there is no such rule for women in South Korea, and men only spend 2 years in military service. South Korea is way more vibrant, democratic, and liberal than North Korea, which is still conservative, with masses still struggling for getting their rights and can be sent to prison even for minor mistakes. South Korea is influencing the entire world with its music. K-pop is becoming more and more popular by the day, while their dramas are also globally acclaimed. North Korea is way behind, where people don't even have the right to watch what they want. So if these two entirely different countries will join hands, these differences will make it difficult for them to accept each other. These diversities may lead to internal conflicts, which the government would have to deal with. But if North Korea and South Korea join hands with each other, no one will dare to get into a battle with them. Why? Because North Korea has 1.1 million active troops and 7.7 million reserve troops, along with 1,300 aircraft, 70 submarines, 5,000 fended multiple rocket launchers, and 25,000 to 50,000 tons of chemical weapons. When they will combine with 3.3 million South Korean troops, United Korea will become the country with the largest military force in the world. All these consequences come second. The most important thing is how these two nations will unite after all these differences. Few global models can be followed as an example for the unification process, for instance, the way East Germany reunited with West Germany. The second option is just like North Vietnam defeated South Vietnam and formed a single government, or the way China and Hong Kong are united, where both operate their separate governments. Talking about the first option, it seems like a far-fetched option, as two entirely different nations like South and North Korea have never opted for peaceful negotiations to create a new sovereign state. East and West Germany opted for reunification, but they were never involved in the war against each other, and East Germany voted to be absorbed by West Germany after an all-inclusive election involving voters on both sides. And there wasn't a situation of dictatorship in any of these two countries, just like it is in North Korea. It doesn't seem that the North Korean leader would agree to compromise his powers for the unification process. The second option is that they get into a battle, and whichever gains control over the other will create a single government. But war is never an option, and neither South Korea nor North Korea would want to get into a battle that cost millions of lives, just like happened in the past. Now, third options like China and Hong Kong seem possible for the reunification, as most South Koreans are in favor of coexistence, and it can be a useful strategy to build peaceful relations without the formal unification of their two systems. Whichever options both nations choose, allies would play a huge role. During the wars between South Korea and North Korea, the US always stood behind South Korea, while China stepped in to help North Korea when it was losing ground gains to South Korea. Now, if the unification happens, both China and the US will play their roles. The US influence can be more crucial, as there are currently 28,500 US troops deployed in South Korea, and unification can cause the US to withdraw these troops. Talking about China, during the war, when the US got closer to South Korea, China had to make close ties with North Korea to prevent the US from getting near to the borders by using South Korean land. But if these two countries now unite and the US withdraws its troops, China might be no longer interested. Despite all the efforts and dialogue for the unification process, there are some crucial questions that need to be answered. Will the North Korean dynasty agree to compromise its powers? How much are South Koreans willing to give up? Will people from both sides accept each other with their different views and ideologies? What's your take on the situation? Do share with us in the comment section, and don't forget to give us a big thumbs up if you like our videos, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos.